Hey there, interwebs. I hope you're all doing well. So I was scrolling on Reddit the other night, and I came across an ad for DirectTV that I found to be really weird. So let's watch it and then discuss it.
DirectTV is a leader in sports, but Jeff doesn't have DirectTV, so he's watching baseball at his weird neighbor's house.
He's all right. I love watching the game with you.
Call 1-800-DirecTV to guarantee your price for 2 years.
So first off, Brian Cox is in that ad. You know, I love Brian Cox in Secession. By the way, Secession, have you been watching it this season? Holy crap, this season is freaking phenomenal. But regardless, you know, Brian Cox is an interesting figure when you look at some of his more recent quotes, but he's not really the issue that I have with this ad. The issue that I have with this ad is that it sets up this joke where we're supposed to, like, find the neighbor creepy. Like, he's supposed to be, like, this creepy, weird neighbor. But then when you watch the punchline of the joke, where you get to see this neighbor being creepy, he's not really being that weird at all. He seems a bit strange, yes, but he's honestly seems kind of nice. He's letting this friend of his come over and watch his TV, and he just seems like kind of a nice dude who is maybe not up on his social graces. And so I kind of sat there watching the ad being like, well, why is it weird? And to me, I'm not saying that the writers of this ad were this, but the ad itself came across as a bit homophobic. That there's this fear of this neighbor being, you know, attracted to this guy, and that making, you know, the guy in question who's with his creepy neighbor uncomfortable. And to be fair, it is entirely okay if you are uncomfortable with someone around you trying to hit on you or having feelings for you. That's entirely fine. And he should express that and say, hey, I think you're being a little bit weird and I'm kind of uncomfortable with your you know, closeness to me. But it honestly comes across more in the ad that the issue is that this guy is expressing, you know, those feelings or has a, you know, kind of love and desire or, you know, at least feelings for our lead character in the scene. And this is even reinforced with a little bit of the queer coding that's going on. I mean, you get to see the unicorn in the background by the TV, which, again, is kind of stereotypical gay coding that you kind of get sometimes in Hollywood. Like, oh, look, likes unicorns, he must be gay. So, yeah, this ad just comes across as very weird and has homophobic vibes for me, and I wasn't about it. Again, just to be clear, not calling the writers of it homophobic, but, you know, I just think they made a bad ad. They made a bad ad. But the reason that I wanted to talk about this ad was I think it is a really great way to showcase the difference between homophobia, a fear of gayness, versus, you know, being anti-gay. You know, there's been a larger discussion that we've been having around the language we use when we're discussing things like being homophobic versus being anti-gay. And actually in a lot of different things like anti-blackness, or the one that is most relevant to a lot of the stuff that I talk about, anti-transness versus transphobia. And you'll see a lot of, like, anti-trans bigots say, well, you know, we aren't actually transphobes because transphobia requires fear of trans people. We're not scared of you, trying to have this, like, strong, tough guy response to being called a transphobe. But what you'll find at the kernel of everything that is anti-trans or anti-black or anti-gay is there is always some level of irrational fear, because phobia is an irrational fear of something. Like, for example, an irrational fear that lies at the heart of anti-trans hate is, like, they're going to trans all the children, they're trying to turn all the people trans, or they're trying to turn all the people gay, or that they're mutilating children in hospitals. Like, that is not saying that you have a fear of an individual trans person on the street, though there is also that, and that's a sort of larger discussion, but it is an irrational fear of trans people that you are expressing that then goes out into anti-trans hate. And that is the difference. There's a rational fear of something that can be expressed that doesn't necessarily go into performing anti-something actions. You know, Matt Walsh expresses a rational fear of trans people, but then he goes and actually uses it to try to justify violence against trans people, like advocating for laws or stoking stochastic terrorism against trans people, things like that, creating a space where trans people don't feel safe. But our society in general has this vibe of trying to, place everyone into certain roles, and thus it creates an anxiety or fear of difference that fits outside of these molds. And so pretty much all of us, even trans people, gay people, queer people ourselves, even black people can express, racism or racist views within their own lives. And we as queer and trans people can also have that internalized queer phobia, transphobia, etc. And ads like this in the DirectTV one, weirdly enough, kind of showcase this, right? It's not the ad being hateful towards gay people overtly. It's not like Brian Cox being out here being like, fuck the gays, or DirectTV doing that. But the ad itself, the way it feels like it can, sell to its audience, regardless of whether it's aware of it or not, is playing off of that implicit fear of gayness, of gay people being around you, of gay people being next to you and quite possibly having an attraction to you. It's not overt hate, but it is that fear that comes out of, recognizing gayness existing within a space that we did not expect it to, because we built our society to not expect a gayness in any space other than gay people spaces that are often just there to accommodate gay people rather than to include gay people within our society. And so that fear and that anxiety of seeing a gay person where they're not supposed to be is what underlines a lot of, anti-gay, anti-trans work, like seeing a trans person in a public space, seeing a trans person in a bathroom. That fear of seeing that and that disgust at seeing that is what leads to people to try to enact, violence, like creating bathroom laws against trans people. But it is something we all feel. And so I wanted to talk about this DirectTV ad, not just to be like, fuck DirectTV, though someone at DirectTV probably should have caught that this ad was a problem. That's a larger discussion as well. But I wanted to talk about it because I think this TV ad showcases the difference between being, homophobic and being anti-gay, and how we can sort of have a larger discussion around that.